Hello, this is Sam Simon for the Dementia Man blog, and I am Dementia Man, and today am I delighted to have a longtime friend and expert in the field of aging, Steve Gurney. And I love the title that you have at your name because I'm on your team, pro aging. It's better than the alternative.
I love it. Yes, we need to ban that term anti-aging. It doesn't make sense. And there's billions of dollars flowing into it on cosmetic counters and things like that. And all these healthy, lovely adults are buying anti-aging creams. And if they just thought about that term and what it means, if you're not aging, you're dead.
Look at all of these things I'm getting now.
Yeah. You don't want to put anti-aging spots on or cream on that, Sam, because you'll die. That's what anti-aging means.
Yeah.
I'm delighted to be here chatting with you, Sam. You're so inspirational to me and many others in how you've reinvented yourself with the horrible diagnosis of dementia, but you're a testament that if we're breathing and we're living, we can find purpose. It's not easy to reinvent ourselves, but you're an example of how we can do that.
Steve, you're taking the whole thing up front. Now, I'm going to start
Sorry.
with thanking you because we go back a bit. Who knew, right? When you were, I don't know if you were really beginning, but you, actually, I don't even know how you got your expertise. We might spend a minute there, but my wife, Susan, known also as AKA Cognitive Navigator today, was the director of marketing and admissions at a senior living facility in Northern Virginia called, you can remind me of it.
I think it was Tall Oaks.
Tall Oaks at Ruston, Virginia. We live in McLean. And you were in the business of or started, you had I don't know if it was a magazine or a newsletter.
Yeah, I still publish it. It's called the Positive Aging Sourcebook. And how I got into this and how I met Susan was 35 years ago. My Over 35 years ago, my grandfather needed a nursing home, and I saw what my family had to go through. And then I graduated from college, and I didn't have the greatest job in the world. And so actually this month I'm celebrating our 35th anniversary. This
The
is
anniversary.
this is the first edition that I published,
Wow.
Guide to Retirement Living, and much to my surprise, people loved it. And here I am 35 years later, and it's been a wonderful journey to have the vantage point of looking at the marketplace from a macro level and all the assorted resources from aging in place to making a move to a senior community to all the resources that are out there, like aging life care managers and folks that can help people make decisions. That's how I got started, Sam.
No,
And
but I want to say something about that because it's so brilliant in our lives now, but it's not, and you know this too, it's not going to be just our lives. I was just getting, and you probably have seen it too, new data on the number of people who, well, actually, I'm focused, the number of people are going to be having Alzheimer's, but the aging world, we have the baby boomer generation and their children all confronting how do we live well into our latest years? Health for many is good, so you can live longer, but living independent by yourself in a home, these are big questions. Your work is more important than ever. There are more senior living facilities coming online. And, maybe we'll end. I'm going to one of the most controversial and difficult questions I'm getting to, and we can have maybe add it to the conversation, but I'll put it in here. As we get towards end of life, whether it's somebody like me who's going to Alzheimer's, or I hate the dementia word, they're cognitively impaired and need to be living in a place, or just people in their late 80s and 90s who need community, find it easier to live in a communal environment, but the cost, particularly for, I guess, on this point, focusing back on those with cognitive disease, because we both agree that we can find meaningful living in life and value throughout and to the end, whether we are the same people we are right now or we become someone else, but the financial cost and impact, particularly on middle to lower middle class families, is so huge. I'm becoming an advocate. We can get to this is like the end, we'll come back to it. But that we need some sort of public support for that world. But let's get back to so I'm going to so what motivated so first of all, people can go back in one of my earliest interviews with you. You were at the Capitol Fringe in July of 2023. You saw the show. You recontacted me and Susan, or we in the process we did it, and you were a big fan then. We did a quick interview. So thank you again for all that and all you're doing because but like everybody else, well, this is not quite true. Susan worked in the senior living world, but as we grow in our own world and our own needs, confronting what to do and how to do it, we're learning. It's a new era of life. It's sort of like I remember saying, I wish somebody had taught me how to be a parent of a teenager. Well, I wish somebody had taught me how to get old. You know that you can look around, but until it's your turn, and so work like what you do. By the way, you do it for professionals. And I know because I've seen you work and seen you in those environments that that work and that training you do and that sharing of information you do is critical. But I also think, and I know you do, for my gift to that community is that they get to hear from somebody who has it, which isn't always possible, and particularly not somebody I'm glad to do it. I'm going to be there's a conference at the end of this month called On Aging in Orlando, which is going to have 2,000 people from the aging community around the country. So I'm hoping to air this right before we all go to let them know, first of all, about me and you too, but and know that this conversation, I'm sure many of them know that it's going on. Though it's hidden, particularly.
Well, yeah, well, Sam, what I admire about the conference that's having you speak and what is lacking in our field is my gut level feeling at that conference, because it's true at every conference, is that you have professionals on the podium lecturing to professionals in the audience. And they're all knowledgeable. I'm not disparaging what they're saying, but let me tell you, a professional on the podium telling me 10 things that I should do if my client or my loved one has dementia is not nearly as authentic and impactful as Sam Simon telling his journey and his story of getting a diagnosis and the trials and tribulations of that. I I am a huge fan of putting the quote unquote customer on the podium, and I try to do that anytime I can, which was why I was so excited to have you on our platform. It makes a huge difference. It really does. Um, you know, you can't follow a checklist to figure this out. You need, I think what's better than a checklist is seeing and hearing your performance of Dementia Man and hearing the journey that you went on and then reflecting on that on, wow, I'm going through something similar with my mom and dad. And it's good to know that Sam struggled with getting an appointment to a neurologist, or
Right.
had to question the results of that first
Yeah.
diagnosis.
I mean, but there's both sides of that. It's interesting in the talk. There's so much, and I'm experiencing this too and hearing it. The struggle within the medical or aging world a bit is similar, yet the stories are unique. And you've heard it, I'm sure. If you know one person with dementia, I hate that word, you know. If I said, if you know one person with dementia, you know one person with dementia. So each of our journeys are unique, and yet the system struggles it. I love, I know that this about me, but I love reassess every time I tell and talk to people, I hear the audience, I re-understand, that's right, re-understand my own journey. And I get new insights. I had I love that fact that I had done a earlier play called The Actual Dance because Susan had been diagnosed with cancer, and they had docs pulled me over one day and said, "You better get ready." Luckily, she's a survivor. It's all good, but those are such challenging uh, moments, and we don't. I hear it every time differently. I, my audiences teach me often, um, and I'm learning a little bit too that because we do have a good neurologist now. I won't use his name, but I should because I want to. But on the other hand, I do recommend him, and people say, "Yeah, we didn't have an appointment for another 9 months." But anyway. Um, But it was as hard for him to give the diagnosis as it was for me to receive it. And I don't know if everybody understands that. And these are emotional and difficult moments.
Yep.
What's missing? Because even for him, though he's changed in a little bit, when we walk out of his office after that, there's just like an empty, it's not, there's a waiting room with a couple of other people waiting. There's, you know, it's like walking off the spaceship into outer space because now our neurologist has changed a bit in that he does have a social worker there once a month. I would want to require, by the way, that you can't be in the business of giving terminal diagnosis without some social support in the lobby or waiting or available. I just Medicare has started covering what they call breast navigators. I call Susan now my cognitive navigator.
I love it.
But you need to have someone, and not a doctor as much as a social work kind of framework, who can talk to you, explain. There's some books and some things out there, pamphlets that could be given, and that's a good start too. But so tell me a little bit about pro aging, will you, and what you do. And I know that you started regionally in the Mid Atlantic, but your work now, thanks to global internet, is in some ways global. So tell me
Yeah.
a little bit about pro
So
aging.
yeah, absolutely. And so the what I as I had mentioned earlier, My grandfather needed a nursing home. I came about creating this print publication. This is the first one. This is the current one in the Mid-Atlantic back in the 90s. And so for the last 35 years, I have been publishing this resource guide and a pretty comprehensive website that your listeners can go visit at proaging.com. But one of the things that I discovered early in my career is nobody wants anything in this book. Okay. No matter how beautiful the retirement community is, no matter how lovely your grab bars are, no matter how much your home care agency treats you like family, nobody wants any of this stuff. And the phrase that I hear every day of the week, I'll hear it every day till I'm out of this career, is, "Oh, that's nice, but I'm not ready yet." And 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 but what I discovered was that while the consumer might say, "I'm not ready yet," when somebody hands them this book, the professional community, the social workers, the financial planners, the offices on aging were ordering my books by the box load because these individuals are working with older adults and families that have said, "I'm ready," in one small area. It might be, okay, I'm going to finally do my estate planning, or maybe I should look at putting up some grab bars in my home. And the professional that's working with somebody on their estate plan was handing this to them with some authority. It's so like, "Hey, now that you're doing this, take a look at this." And so one of the things, and Sam, you've spoken at some of my events, I would bring together professionals in events for over 30 years. Well, the pandemic hit, and all these professionals started coming to me saying, "What are we going to do? We can't meet in person anymore." So I started playing around with ways for the professional community to meet online. And then an interesting phenomena happened. Same thing that happened with the print pub is they started telling their clients. And so fast forward, now on a weekly basis at proaging.com, we have weekly live and interactive discussions. And about half of our audience are older adults and their families, and the other half are providers. And it really makes for some lively, thought-provoking discussions. Um, our I'll share with you what some of our most popular discussion topics are because they might resonate with your audience.
Great.
Our number one discussion topic is solo aging. And I never knew that this term existed. And when I bring up solo aging, most of the time people say, "Oh, yeah, I heard that politician talking about lonely cat ladies. I guess there's a lot of them out there." Okay, you could say that somebody like that is a solo ager, but I'll use myself as an example. I'm married and I've got two children, but I'm a solo ager. And you're like, "Steve, what do you mean? You got network, you got community." It's like, look, me and my wife are not going to die on the same day at the same time. And my two kids, I don't want them worrying about me. Okay. And quite frankly, they probably right now don't want to worry about me. And so I need to think of myself in the future. What is life going to be like if I'm alone? How am I going to make that plan? We need to think about this not in a negative or a sad viewpoint, but in an empowering viewpoint. This is like, if I think about it, if I make a plan now, I'm making the world a better place for myself and those people in my community. So solo aging is our number one topic. The other one closely following is what to do with our stuff. Okay. We we've all got stuff.
We
Okay.
all got stuff. I should take my camera down to my basement and show
Yeah.
you my bookcase. Okay.
Yeah. And so like we have some amazing discussions on what to do with our stuff. But I think the thread on that one that I like more than any other is the topic of Swedish death cleaning, which basically says, let's figure out where all our stuff is going to go while we're alive so that the people that come into our home are not burdened with the stress of feeling like they need to hold on to that 14-foot armoire because dad never got rid of it. That I want people to get that 14-foot armoire now, whether I know them or not, okay? And enjoy it while I'm alive. And then when I pass, they can come into my house and know exactly where all this junk, and it's junk, folks. It's like, and I say that tongue in cheek,
It's
is
not.
that,
I was going to say, I want to give you two quick things because they're a personal example. So the first thing, and I don't remember who suggested or whether we did it on our own. Maybe we did it on our own. Was as soon as I got the diagnosis, we went to talk to our state attorney, and he wouldn't talk to us unless we had our adult children with us. So he wanted them to hear this discussion because it included a lot of what you're talking about, not just money,
yeah,
right? And it was the emphasis of what you're saying that they need to understand early on the sort of our side of it. I also want to go to the other side of it. And I've mentioned it to you in other contexts. I don't want, and I think this is complicated, but there's always a risk in our journey, particularly with cognitive impairment as part of not just aging, that we become financial burdens. I hate that word, but it's true to our children. And particularly with a disease like Alzheimer's or dementia and the risk of it, how do we come to terms with our kids and our planning? And it is so that we don't soak them. I think this to me is an unresolved challenge and becomes an incentive for what we both, I think, don't support, which is going to Switzerland or some other place and just kill ourselves. There was an obituary not that long ago in the Washington Post of a man I knew from back in the day when I was in politics. He had been a political advisor to President Clinton. He had gone off to live in Santa Fe and had Alzheimer's. And in his obituary, he's quoted said, as he went to Switzerland and had accompanied suicide, that I didn't want to become such a burden to my family. And I think I hate that concept of burden. The reality is there's a financial burden shift. I mean, part of it we can deal with ourselves by our planning and systems so we can live a reasonably meaningful life to the end here. I mean, but there are gifts, by the way. I had not thought of saying it this way. But we should say it this way. There may be the biggest gift, and I think it is for my wife, because I've been on the other side of this. What bigger gift can I give to Susan? It's how my play ends now that I think about it. To hold me, or that she could give to me to hold her as she took her last breath. Nobody wants anybody to die. But imagine enabling people, someone you love, to feel that love as the last moment of their life. What a gift. And the gift to be able to do that. So there are gifts in that. At the same time, we don't want to be financial ruins to our children. We don't want, so it is complicated. Part of it, though, too, is in this process. There's this competition for the narrative out there, which there is a end of life, choose how you die kind of narrative, and the gifts of living to your natural end of life, including for me, you've heard me say in the play. Maybe there's something in me that as I go through that last moment, they'll figure out, helps find a cure, maybe just by a nanosecond or a day or a minute that is helpful to the medical world. So we have those gifts in our lives. And I think we have to go from egocentric to generosity in this journey. Sorry, I jumped in.
Oh no, I love it. And you're right on. And I love hearing your personal story. Like I said, I think personal stories are the way that we can get others to think about this. And yeah, so solo aging, intergenerational, and then a topic that it might not be our most popular, but it's a common thread on all of our discussions. And you and I were talking about it right before we came on, and that's affordability. Is that the um there's a term in this space of senior living, and it's called the forgotten middle. Okay. And what the way I look at the world of these elder care, let's call it services, is that we've got three distinct groups. We've got the impoverished and those people below a certain income and asset line. And thankfully, we have government programs and some nonprofit programs in place that are doing their best to take care of folks below a certain income. Okay, and let's keep our fingers crossed that they continue. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have people that have accumulated wealth and have a monthly income over whatever number we want to arbitrarily say. But, and for that group, in general, there are choices out there in the marketplace. But the group that we really need to be aware of and supportive of is this forgotten middle, and what I also call the caught between the cracks group. And the reason this group is called the forgotten middle primarily addresses the senior housing community market, in that real estate developers are not designing for the moderate income. They are focused exclusively on, how can I get the most bang for my buck? If I'm going to build the building, I'm going to make it, a building that is going to address the huge market that's out there of affluent older adults. But I remind people, in our first time in history, we have more affluent older adults than ever before. But we also have more impoverished older adults than ever before, and we have more middle market. And we've got to come up with solutions for the middle market.
That's so real. And once somebody ever got projecting our experience, once we go shopping and start looking at this, and I want to preface it by saying, when Susan and I were much younger and were offered what's the insurance you get?
Long-term care insurance.
Long-term care. We said we're doing well enough, we don't need it. The place we just looked at, I think you're familiar with it, we won't use its name, the newest one in our neighborhood.
Mhm.
It's 20, 30 stories up. It's like, we visited it, it's like being on the elite level of a big ship floating the world. And it needs between 600 and 4.4 million to get in, 600,000, 4.4 million to get in. And it's between 11 and 13 to 15,000 a month to be there. Whew. And then it's for us that living style. I want to live in a home to live in. I don't want to live years as if I'm on a vacation ship. But that's me. But anyway, I mean, we're living that thing, including the options of, as you heard in my play, my closing lines are, what are our options? Well, one could be because there's a risk. And again, this is like real talk. There are some things in me that are happening that can scare my wife, Susan, because again, they're not volitional. They're triggers that I blow up. I don't blow up at her. They blow up mainly at me for but they're not controllable. I can be aware of it. I can try. She got scared and thought I might hurt her. Well,
Mhm.
maybe I have to be somewhere else because those traits in me. But we look at group homes are important. I did a performance of my play for the National Association of Adult Daycare Providers, and that business is transforming itself as well.
Oh, it's amazing. And it's especially amazing for people with who are caring with or have loved ones with dementia.
And my view is that I bet you they're gonna start implementing some overnighting. Um, I haven't seen it just yet because sometimes it's just I need a break. I
Mhm.
know that some of the traditional, I think, and you might senior living may have some facilities that somebody can come stay there for a week to give the caregiver some uh, respite, if you will. But sometimes it's just I need a night off. I need a few days, and the daycare world might end up doing that. So there's a lot to do there, but we need more people like you, who are experts in the access of the material you produce. Um, and I really wanted to have a conversation because whatever little bit I can do with, I don't get thousands listening to my blogs yet, but maybe we'll do it. And I just wanted to make sure people knew about the really important work you've been doing, and particularly as I'm going to on aging down in Orlando, the conference. I think I'm going to have a workshop on the April 23rd at 5 o'clock, a celebration three to promote myself. That's the room name. Uh, Although I'm just engaging in a difficult conversation with them, for they raised a question about my wife, who is my cognitive navigator, um, having to become a member of the group. I said, no, she's a ADA accommodation. So we're having that conversation. So, but anyway, what do you want to last words of people? Not last words, words for those who may hear this who are heading for on aging.
Well, I think that number one, if you're going to the On Aging conference and you don't sign up to meet and see Dementia Man, you're crazy. You're gonna be there for a whole week, and so you got tons of choices, but just if you don't see Sam and connect with him in person, you're really doing yourself a disservice. And the thing that I want everybody to think about here is that, and actually, here's my last words, okay, Sam, and it's about community. Okay, it's about diagnosis and community. I'm pretty involved in the Parkinson's community uh, through my work, and when people get a diagnosis of Parkinson's or dementia, oftentimes the thing that they say to their doctor is, "Does this mean that I'm not going to live as long and I'm not going to live as good of a life?" And one of the renowned Parkinson's doctors, Dr. Falconer, says, actually, if you follow what we say, you may live longer and a better life. And have seen this firsthand. And Sam, I would reflect on your own journey. Is that I know from the dialogue in your play that you were torn and heartbroken when you realized that you had this diagnosis. But reflect back at the time from the diagnosis and where you are today. You are a part of a community that you would have never been a part of. You have friends now that are probably deeper and more meaningful than friends that you have made through your career and in your neighborhood. It's because of this diagnosis. And I've been blown away is that so people, when you get a diagnosis, it's heartbreaking. I don't know. Someday I may be diagnosed with dementia or Parkinson's or some kind of illness. But one thing that I've seen firsthand is that if you can get out there and connect with other people with that same diagnosis, you can be a part of something that is probably more powerful than the the casual acquaintances that you meet in in the workplace and in your neighborhood that you ever came about.
So I'm going to validate that by a story I've been doing lately, and I'm called to do this in some ways because it's about my girlfriend. Don't tell Susan; she knows whose name the late Lynn Fielder. She died at the age of 62. I met Lynn when I was on the board of directors of the World Institute of Disability. Lynn had been diagnosed with Parkinson's at the age of 30 and had brain stimulation or deep brain stimulation at 30 years old. At 40, she had been doing well. She had been the clinical director for Planned Parenthood in Silicon Valley. That's a pretty big job. But at 40, she needed to retire. Well, I met Lynn. On the day I met Lynn, it was at a board meeting. He was just being brought on the board. Something happened. She came out and she looked at me and said, Sam, let's have lunch. And during lunch, she said, I'm not poor Lynn with this terrible disease. She didn't separate Lynn from Parkinson's. She said, I am Lynn with Parkinson's, and I will be the best of that the world has ever seen. Now, I hadn't been diagnosed, but it was a different context. But she said, Sam, what I want to say, I have learned from Lynn that I will be the best Sam with Alzheimer's that the world has ever seen. It's not Alzheimer's and Sam. It's Sam with Alzheimer's. And if anybody can learn from Lynn, I give her the credit for that, what happens if we embrace that, if we can't do anything about it, then we embrace it. It emboldens us as who we are, and we live the best of that hopefully the world has ever seen. So thank you, Steve, because we must have gone to the same school of life somewhere. I love what you do, and thank you for what you do, because you bring that not just you bring it to the professional world, and it's like any other place, and it is a hard world to be in. I want to give all credit. I had been the caregiver. I had been on the other side of this, and Susan, my wife, you knew her. She went through breast cancer. And I was a care partner. Her diagnosis was very grim at one point, but she was always Susan. She was always fighting there she was stronger than I was and around us. But now, when I see the care partner journey and responsibility with someone who changes, who maybe is no longer the same person, as at least mentally, as they married or live with, it gets and the behaviors change so dramatically. I know it can be difficult, but it is the ultimate act of love and responsibility too of community to create dignity for everyone. But anyway, thank you, Steve. I'm looking forward to continuing to be part of a mutual journey, and we're going to have to go do a Steve and Sam show somewhere someday.
I love it.
All right.
Thank you so much, Sam. And it's been great to be your guest today.
Thank you.